And I am back, and I am jumping into the second episode of our conversation with Miss Eureka Evolution Williams. And let me tell you something. She was just dropping so much stuff during our first episode that I'm going to tell you now. You're going to have to listen to it like 2 or 3 times, especially if you're me and you're listening to something and you hear one of those aha moments and you get stuck right there. You have to keep going back to listen to it again. And one of the things towards the end of the show that you said, and I want to pick up there, where you were talking about how sometimes in the dream process, you got to go through that period of incubation. And I know personally that there are a couple of different kinds of incubation. You can tell me if you agree with this, because I've had them both in my life when I decided in 2007 to step away from radio. And at that point, I'd done radio for 24 years. So it's like you were saying, it was second nature for me. The whole interviewing and researching and being in that industry was very second nature for me. So to step out of radio and decide that I want to go into full-time the writing and publishing arena was different. And I remember early on, God would keep taking me, because when I jumped out there, Eureka, I was telling everybody everything that I was going to do and what I was going to achieve and this, that, and everything. Anybody that had an ear, I was talking to. And God would continuously take me to the story of Joseph. And I would read it, and I would be like, okay, but I've read this a lot, Lord. I've heard this preached all my life in church. And I was like, okay, I know I'm thick-headed. I know I can tend to be slow, but clearly you keep bringing me here because there's something you're trying to show me. And so finally one day I'm sitting there, and I said, okay, I'm going to read it word for word, comma by comma, period by period, like I've never read it before, because I've got to get the revelation here. And so that's what I did. And in the midst of doing that, I clearly got this thing in me that says, where did you read that I told Joseph to go saying anything? You didn't read it. You know, Eureka, when you hear something like that, because you're just like, but I get where Joseph was coming from, because he was excited, and, this thing was, it inspired him, it encouraged him. Not that, he was necessarily trying to be, whatever, but I read that thing again, and I was like, okay, you're right, nowhere in there did you do that. No. And what I've learned even years later in that story is that we have to be very mindful, because we have some stuff in us that if we're not careful, presents or creates the wrong thing. And I say that because one of the things I learned in that same story is that I really don't believe that Joseph had any ill intent in sharing the dream with his brothers. But when I look at it from a writer's standpoint, what I say is, but you know what? It's a thing where if you're not careful, that one little thing becomes a manner for you to manipulate a situation.
Exactly. Too soon.
Right.
Too soon.
Right.
When you are a futuristic visionaire, you have to know that about yourself, because futuristic, sometimes when God is calling you to be the platform and not being a part of a platform, He would give you futuristic things that, and that's exactly what happened to Joseph. He actually was dreaming about something that put him in a position to help many. He may have started being a part of it, but he was raised up to take over and be that main person. So the warfare came to cancel out what came out of his mouth too soon. And it's the very same thing that happens to us when we are futuristic thinkers. It would be, if God is going to do it 5 years from now, we would know 5 years ago.
Yes.
And sometime when we don't know timing in that incubation stage and time, we will start working on that thing that is futuristic, and it wears us out. So when it's time to birth it, you're tired.
You're tired, yes.
You're tired, and you feel defeated, and you feel like it's not going to work. It's not that it's not going to work. You are a futuristic thinker. God has created you to be a platform, not be a part of a platform. You are going to be the platform that people would come and sit on, and people would come and speak on. So therefore, you got to know that. And there's no way, because it's not being taught. And the only way that you're able to understand it is if you go through trial and error. But I've learned, Claudette, I've learned that when God is calling you to be a futuristic, he gives you futuristic dreams. That means that you are the platform that many are going to speak on, they are going to stand on, and there is no competition to what it is that I've given you, because you have already, let's say you've already been trained in this place. So nothing will be wasted. So that, you being in radio broadcasting for all of those years and coming out, it felt strange, like this is your familiar place.
Right.
But it was the place of training, so you could get the knowledge and wisdom, everything that you needed to actually do what you're doing now.
Exactly.
And then I go back to when I was in business, opening up salons and all the rest of that type of stuff. I was a visionaire as a young person, but in a different way. So now God, he's not calling me to like all of a sudden be a visionary. I've been the visionary.
Right.
But only in a different way. So now he's saying, I've called you not to fish anymore, but you're going to be fishers. You're going to be fishers of men. And you will be the platform that many stand on. Now you have to go through your incubation stage, and so that you could metamorphosize in your thinking, in your spirit, and be open enough to the team that I'm drawing to you in this season.
And the incubation phase, whether it's a forced incubation phase or whether it's a by choice incubation phase, is very uncomfortable. It can be a very lonely place, and at the same time, and it can be a place where if you're not careful, and I say this because I know it, your emotions will have you to and fro multiple times a day. And in that phase, you become so sensitive to the motives and to the intentions of everyone around you, whether it's family or coworkers or associates, people sitting near you in church. You become so very sensitive to so much that it can sometimes feel overwhelming. But I think what we must learn in that phase, especially as dreamers, as visionaries, is there is a reason your sensitivity is being awakened. There is a reason your sensitivity is being awakened. So if your sensitivity is being awakened to the motives of a people, that's part of what we talked about in in our first discussion, Eureka, is learning how to cover yourself. That's part of your covering yourself thing. Because if you sense the motives and you become mindful of the motives and you don't ignore the motives, you then can protect yourself. And then when you become sensitive to, they call it empaths, when you become sensitive to the feelings and the emotions and the pains of others around you, then it helps you define your area of help. It helps you define what is in you that's pulling that person's pain. Why can you feel that person's pain as opposed to this person's pain? It's helping you understand who you are, what your purpose, what your dream is really about. But that incubation phase, Eureka,
it's a crucial place, because now you're in between two places. You're actually being prepared to birth out something that would last, that would leave a mark in the land, even when your eyes are closed, or you could die in the incubation stage. You know, and you have to know that. Like, it'll be easier to turn back and get rid of the weight of what you're becoming, but it will be also worth it to hang in there, just to see what the end is going to be.
Let's take a first break and let's come back, because I want to pull more out of you about what you just said. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back on The Right Word Awaken. And we're in break 1, and we're coming out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're back with Eureka Evolution Williams talking about the dreams and the dream snatching, and we're in that, we're having that conversation about when you're in that phase called incubation. And so if you're not careful, Eureka, what you said going into the break is in that incubation stage, you can die. And so what happens is then you, in that death, you end up snatching your own dream away from you.
It's true, and because what you're reaching for, what you're becoming, is so bigger than you. It's financially bigger than you. It is spiritually bigger than you, and it's, even though God is using you, it is not about you. It's about the people, the lives that's going to be transformed because you believe, God, that you could do this. So you're the sacrifice, because you're the visionary. You're the one that is being used, and your life, that's exactly what it is. Your life is being used. You're the sacrifice. Although it is not about you, and you have to get that. When you're in the incubation stage, when you come out, everything is so big. It costs more. If it's God's idea, it costs more. It's something that you've never done. And if you look at your present circumstance can't fund God's idea.
Oh, have mercy. No.
Cannot. There's no way. And you don't know that everything is not about money in the incubation stage, because now you're used to an old operation. And when you're in that incubation stage, God is lining up everything that has been in the heavens, now in the earth. He's lining up those people that will offer you favor, and because they believe in what it is. And you have to know, the reason why we die in that incubation stage, because although God has given us something huge, if our minds hadn't been transformed, if we don't become sensitive to what the Spirit of the Lord is saying, we would actually struggle in our belief system, and then it will cause us to lose our pulse for who we're becoming.
Wow. Now, you said towards the end of the first episode as well that it is important that you go through that tunnel period in your life. You go through that tunnel period, walking out your dreams and your vision and your purpose. But you said you have to go through that tunnel without scarring your belief system.
Right.
So
right. You have to
expound on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have to, because a tunnel is really small. It's really small, and it's a place that you could travel through by taking the right position and without coming out scarred. But if you're fighting, going through the tunnel, then you will come out bruised. Meaning when God get ready to send us through this tunnel to our new position in life, although you can't see it, although you don't know how big it is, but you feel something. You know, God gave you a glimpse of something, and you dreamed something. You have to believe enough to yield to the journey. You have to rest and yield to the journey. If you don't yield to the journey, meaning whatever he desires for you to lose, you have to be okay with it. Whatever he's shedding off, because the tunnel is not wide at all, you can't take everything or everyone. and if you're trying to pull things, even material things, and then if anybody is, if we tell the truth about ever becoming what it is that God has called us to be, you know that comes along with losing, repositioning in life. Sometimes you lose to win. So you have to know that although I'm traveling through this tunnel, and in order for me to gain my new identity, in order for me to have my new mindset, I have to yield to, okay, this has to go, that has to go. You have to go, you can't come. This relationship has to end. I can't take you. I have to travel through this tunnel alone.
But that's so and I hear you again. I know you're right. But I'm listening with through the ears of somebody who's going to hear this, and this is what they're going to say. Mm-hmm. You asking me to do too much. You want me to yield. You want me to submit. You want me to surrender. You want me to incubate. You want me to go through a tunnel. Yeah. And we whine about all of that, and we don't want to lose the win. We want to win the win. We don't want to face all of that stuff. But I know, Eureka, that what you're saying is true. And I remember one morning I woke up and I said, you know what, God, why do you always tell people why do you talk to people about me early in the morning? And I get up and so I had a string of text messages for you, and you were saying some stuff on those text messages, and I was like, okay, but this is so hard today. Now, nothing you text me was wrong. Everything you text me was right on point. But that morning, I just decided I don't want to talk to you or Eureka, Lord. I just leave me alone. It's just too hard. It was so much easier when I knew this and when I knew that, and I could, And that lasted for about a good 10 minutes, and then in that 11th moment, there it was again. I had another, I had another idea. I had a creative thought, and when that happens, when I have those moments, and in that 11th moment, I get another vision, I get another dream. Then I say, you know what? Okay, you know what? Get your mind in check, get your emotions in check, because this is about what you're here for. That's what this is about. And it is difficult. I tell people all the time, when I stepped out on faith, when I stepped into my dream, I really, Eureka, was very naive. I wasn't a young person, but I was very naive. I literally thought when I stepped out on faith that everything was going to be paved, the roads were going to be paved lovely and all lined with beautiful flowers and blooming trees that were just going to shake loose every provision and resource I needed. And that did not happen. That did not happen for me. Now, some people stepped out on faith, and that was their testimony. That did not happen for me. And it took me years of trying to figure out why not for me, because I was still functioning in my emotion. I was still that, Lord, I worked hard, I served you, I did this, and I've never been a this, and I've never done. And I was right there until I finally started to get the point that, okay, you know what? But you got some other stuff that we need to deal with. You need to be real. You got some control issues. You got some little manipulation issues. You got some little, daddy's girl spoiled issues. And all of that stuff has to be dealt with. But can I tell you that I fought that yielding and that submitting and that surrendering for a long time. And I fought that every time I was doing something, Eureka, I just thought whoever I knew that did this, did that, I just had to attach them all to me. I had to put Velcro on me and put them on the Velcro and take them with me. And it took me a long time to get off that train, because I sat in that tunnel that I was supposed to just move through. I was just supposed to journey through that thing on quickly. It's like I set up camp in that tunnel, and I was selling sodas and hot sausages in that tunnel. Trying to be okay. You know what I'm saying? Right. Trying to be okay. And so when I look at my life in hindsight, and I'm sure when you look at yours, you're kind of like, So when you're talking to people about that tunnel place and you see that look on their face where they're like, that's too difficult.
Mm-hmm.
That's too difficult. You still want to pull them through.
Yeah, and it is difficult. It is difficult, but it's difficult for a reason. You coming from one system to another system. So it's either you operate your vision and purpose on your system or the system that God is putting in place and the people that he's putting in place and the favor that he's putting in place in order to assist you in this vision or the purpose. Because people, myself, always worked for everything to line up, always controlled everything, always when things got hard, I've always had a plan in place. I was always able to catch myself. I was able to, but then when you transition, you go through that tunnel. Now it's you're in a whole nother system. Now you have to totally depend on God. Nothing that you are would work in this system. If any of who you are, who you were, intervenes with who you've become, once you come through the tunnel, you would delay the response, because God is lining everything up to be drawn to you. Even if you don't see it, and you won't, but he's lining up those relationships. He's lining up the favor. And let me share this. I was in Miami for 50 years, and I moved to Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta not knowing anyone. After the devastation happened last year, October 28th, with my stage play being taken from me. And I relocated saying, God, I did not add up everything. I didn't emotionally try to understand everything. I just shifted. I did it quickly, because I no longer ask God why in reference to people. I ask him to expose all that I am so that I would never have to revisit this place again. And I found out that I had just come through a tunnel with everything on a truck from my system to God's system. And I had no clue that God was saying, you're now going to learn what it is to be sustained by me. Wow. You're going to learn. You're in a foreign country. You don't know anyone. You are going to learn now that you have little to your role is so small in what it is I called you to do. I'm using your life. You're the visionaire, but you're not going to be the one to get it done. And that was not something that I recognized in my old life. I was the one to get it done. I was the one. Yes. I had to have my hands in everything. I had to have, I had to have control. And when he puts you in a place to where you are, if you look at it emotionally, you will say, I'm crippled. No, you're not. You're in his care. And he's going to show you, I don't need you to get this done. And if it was about you from the beginning, it is not my idea. It's yours.
No.
So now I'll show you. Once you yield your life, let me use your life. I'll use your life. You're the sacrifice. You're the visionary. I gave it. Now let me show you that I'm getting ready to line up. Tie your hands. I'm going to tie your hands so you can't move. And then life will come so challenging to where if you because you're such a manipulator and you always used to things working. One, I'm going to challenge your life to, and then everything that I poured into you is still going to move, and your hands are tied. So I discovered the God in a whole nother way. I discovered him to be, he definitely don't need me to get it done. But he has he gave me the ideas, he gave me the vision, and he lined those people up, the precious people he lined up to assist. And when I tell you, I thought everything cost money. I thought everything had to be paid for. But there are some people that will say, hey, you know what? You need space? Let me dedicate this space. Oh, hey, you need this? Let me, and I experienced for the first time in my life, and I've been a believer over 25 years, that God is a miracle worker. He is. Like believers don't believe because they probably don't, a lot of us haven't been put in a position to really believe. We believe because we read it on the Bible, but if you ever was put in a position where your vision was so big and he crippled you for that season to show you that he don't need you to get it done.
No.
He just used your life, your vision, and your ideas to get it done, and he has lined up. Everything in the universe is lined up to make this thing happen because it's his idea. So when you're coming through that tunnel, Claudette, it's a very crucial place. You have to rest and lean in the situation, no matter what is being peeled away, no matter what is being lost. I guarantee you this, it's worth the loss. The relationships, the things, the tangible things, and even when you're switching from one season to the next, even financially. But I'll promise you this, that God that said that you can, and the one that equipped you with the vision and everything, would replace everything, and he will give you back everything that you've lost because you lost it believing in what he said.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am a witness that is true. There is something in there is something about releasing and learning, like old people used to say, go somewhere and sit down. When you just go somewhere and sit down. Go somewhere and sit down. Go sit yourself down and stop thinking that if your hands aren't on it, it's not going to do something.
Yeah.
Because you know what? If your little mighty hands are all that thing is going to need, then have at it.
Right.
But it's not going to work. It's not going to work to the degree that it's called to work because you are spending too much time manipulating the situation and trying to, whether you're doing it intentionally or not, manipulate others, that you're inviting a whole bunch of stuff that you never had any intentions of inviting to the table.
And you're shrinking the dream. Because if your hands, you're shrinking it. Because if your hand's in it, it can't be that big.
No. And so knowing that, knowing that you have a dream that is so much bigger than your hands and your finances and your resources and your relationships can handle, it's scary. It's scary. But at the same time, I think it's okay, though, Eureka, that it be scary. Originally, I didn't think that now. I didn't think that originally. But when you recognize the fact that you have been chosen for something that's scary, it should challenge you. It should encourage you because you have been chosen for something that big. And because I would do this. I would see something big in my dream, but then I would try to do it smaller. Because my mind would say, at least you're getting it done. But no, because I'm still doing what you just said. I'm still making the dream smaller. That's not how I was supposed to play that. If I see it big, play it big. It's kind of like when years ago when my sister taught me how to play the card game spades. She would always, her and her friends would always tell me, you underbid your hand all the time. Stop underbidding your hand. And so that's what we do with our dreams. God gives us this big hand and this big dream, and we keep underbidding it.
All the time. And also, too, when you are the trailblazer in your family and even in your circle, your used-to-be circle, when you're the trailblazer, when everybody is still going to church but you have a vision and a dream, you haven't seen it done. There isn't anyone to say this is how this is supposed to go. Oh, this is normal. You're supposed to have those sleepless nights. You're supposed to have those panic attacks. You're supposed to have, this is part of coming through that tunnel. But if you're the trailblazer and you haven't seen it done but closely, someone that's in your sphere, and you haven't seen it and actually watched them walk it out, you're the first one to go.
Right. Yeah.
So who's to guide you and say, no, don't go that way. Don't go that way. This is the guide. There is no guide. The voice of God is the guide. So who's to say you're doing it wrong?
Mm.
And when you're the trailblazer, the first to go, always encounter the roughest ride because you are making a path for many to come through. And you can't give up. And I'm going to tell you why. You can't give up, no matter how hard it is, and no matter the challenges, because that's just a season. Just like everything else, that too shall pass. You can't give up. There are too many people watching. Now, you have some that's watching to see if you fail, but there are some that's watching to believe God via you.
Yeah.
And if you don't make it, their belief in God will be tainted.
Right.
When in reality, God doesn't change. If he said it, he's going to do it. You just wasn't strong enough to see it through. So I'll tell this to anyone. If you're tired, rest, but don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't see your way, then take a break, pray, and become intimate with the voice of God. Because there are going to be times where our humanity is going to outweigh our divinity. And you're going to want to throw in the towel.
Yeah.
But I'll say this to you. Do what's important. Don't overthink it. One step at a time. Micro steps if you have to. Slow breaths if you have to.
Yeah.
And isolate yourself if you have to. But I promise you this. If God said it, he's going to do it. You have little to do with it. But if he chose you, you're already equipped to finish the journey.
Listen, I can't add anything to that. That's the perfect place to end this show. That's it right there. I'm about to be. Will there be one? I'm just right there. Listen, tell people, Eureka, about your books and where they can find your books and how they can connect with you on Facebook and online.
Facebook, okay, EurekaEvolution.com, Facebook, Eureka Evolution, and both books, Broken Pieces, I Know Who I Am, and Embrace Your Broken Pieces, to be purchased on Amazon.com and BarnesandNobles.com.
And Eureka, if somebody would like to invite you to speak at their event or at their conference or something, how can they contact you?
You could email me at evolutionofbrokenness@gmail.com, and also on Facebook, Eureka Evolution.com, on Eureka Evolution page.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eureka Evolution Williams. I have enjoyed this conversation, and I know that it's going to challenge and help so many. Listen, that incubation period, people, let me tell you something. On the road to walking out your dream, that incubation period, that moving through the tunnel, that understanding that they came to snatch the dreams, but look at why they came to snatch the dreams, and you'll be so much wiser for it. You'll be so much wiser for it. Thank you so much, Eureka. As always, we like to end the show with the aim, the affirmation, the intention, and your move. And so for our conversation with Eureka, our affirmation is, I press towards the mark and assignment of my dream, casting down all things that come against it. Our intention is, I am making me whole and more purposeful as I repurpose the broken pieces in my life and use my new design to help others. And your move is, identify your dream snatchers and identify an immediate positive action to release their assignment against your dream. And as Eureka said, even if it's a micro step, even if it's a micro step so small you don't think you move, still take it. Still take it. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the Right Word Awaken podcast.